Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, I got an interview here with Greg Bell talking about the launch of the HBAR ETF, and not specifically about the ETF. I mean, this specific part is more in regards to Hedera, Hedera's future, and I think you're going to want to hear this. So I've got the post here that's done from Coinman the HBAR and he says, watch Gregory Bell, CBO at Hedera Foundation, talk to Crypto in America about the HBAR ETF and Hedera's ability to scale for the deluge of tokenization that BlackRock's Larry Fink indicates is coming. Greg joins at 32 minutes and 7 seconds. In this clip, he drives home that HBAR is enterprise-grade infrastructure. Okay, so this is just a clip from that actual interview. It's not the full interview, but I've listened to it. And yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. For me, what it sounds like is giving out a sales pitch for BlackRock. And rightfully so, rightfully so. I don't blame him at all. And to me, when you actually hear this, he's absolutely right. So he's talking about how, you know, Larry Fink has basically mentioned how they're going to tokenize, you know, financial instruments, etc., very fast. And he said, you know, I don't think people realize how fast we're looking to do this. And, you know, Greg's saying like, yeah, and that's great. But when you're starting to talk about tokenizing everything, absolutely everything, right? And that if you think back to Leemon Baird, that's what he says, everything of value will be tokenized. He's saying there's not actually many networks that can actually really handle that, right? Like when you start talking about that kind of volume. And he's saying, you know, there's many networks that make those types of claims, but when you actually start to trial that out and test it on the network, you'll notice that they start having downtime, they start having outages, congestion, failed transactions, all these kinds of things. And so, you know, he's basically saying, hey, look, like Hedera was built for this. This is exactly what Hedera was designed for. It was designed for institutional grade adoption, like real world adoption. And so he's saying that, like, you won't get that with Hedera. Like, Hedera is one of the very few networks out there that can actually handle that type of volume, you know, to tokenize, like, everything. And very powerful stuff here, you know. And look, like, I agree. I absolutely agree. Like, at the end of the day, like, we've spoke about Ethereum a few times recently. At the end of the day, with Ethereum, like, the truth is there for you to see, you know, and like, I don't want this to come across like I'm biased because I hold 20 different cryptos, right? I don't just hold HBAR. So at the end of the day, if I really genuinely thought Ethereum was a good crypto, I would just say, right? Like, I'd just say, yeah, I hold Ethereum. I think it's a good token and I believe in it. Now, look, I'm not saying that Ethereum's not going to make money. I think that's quite evident that it will have a good future for now. But long term, as you know, crypto is more adopted and they start seeing, okay, let's not just go by what's the biggest network and, you know, has got the most liquidity. What's actually the better network to choose in terms of we want it to go through first time. We don't want the fees to go ridiculously high. You know, we don't want congestion, failed transactions, etc. That's when you'll start to see, okay, yeah, Ethereum's the number 2 cryptocurrency out there, but there's way better options. You know, if in terms of from a utility standpoint, there's way better options. And so, you know, this is also just to add to the whole thing with Solana getting the Western Union partnership. You know, like I've spoke about this from the XRP point of view, but I can also talk about it from the Hedera point of view as well. Like, if you ask me, if you was going to go with a network, I think Hedera would have been a better choice than Solana. And again, the reason why I say this is not because of bias, because I actually had the opportunity to get into Solana before Solana really took off big in terms of price-wise, right? The reason why I didn't get into Solana is because I kept hearing that it had outages. I kept hearing that it had a lot of downtime and system outages. So I was just like, well, if we're talking about cryptos that are going to like kind of change the world and stuff, if this network keeps having a lot of outages, that doesn't really sound good, right? Like if you're talking about it scaling, because at the moment we're at a point where, like, you know, crypto's not that heavily adopted. So if it's having issues already, then what's it going to be like when it's getting, you know, more heavily adopted? Like, it's going to be ridiculous, right? So for me, I just didn't really have a lot of faith in it personally. I just thought, not for me. Now, again, for the people who did get into Solana and you made money, congratulations. I've got no issue with that. We're all here to make money, so I've got no bitterness in that. I think that's great. But if we're talking from just the technology standpoint, that type of point of view, yeah, Solana just falls short, and I have heard, and I don't know if this is true, so I'm not going to keep saying it like it's a fact because I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the partnership with Western Union was a paid partnership for $50 million. So I don't know if that's a fact, so, don't just take my word for that, but I have heard that that's, what it was. But this is where, when you talk about what Hedera can do as a network, it doesn't have these types of problems. And so when Greg's talking about this, yeah, like he's right. At the end of the day, this is what HBAR is designed for. Like, it's designed for this. Like, this is what it's made to do. So I think this is great. And, it sounds to me like he's trying to make that pitch to Larry Fink, hoping that maybe he'll pick this up. Who knows? Look, I'm not going to sit here now and say, yeah, BlackRock are going to work with Hedera. We don't know that, right? We don't know that for sure. But I don't blame Greg for shooting his shot. I don't blame him for giving it a try, like talking about this, mentioning him. Hopefully he will see it and then maybe give Hedera a try. And again, with this kind of stuff at this point, like with Hedera and just a lot of crypto companies, I think there's a lot of NDAs and stuff going on. So, we probably wouldn't find out if they were working together until it's officially announced, that kind of thing. But yeah, like time will tell. But even if BlackRock don't go with Hedera, like I just think Hedera is one of the better choices for this kind of stuff. So I still think even if it's not BlackRock, there'll be other institutional companies who are coming to Hedera. So I just found this interesting and I thought it was very relevant, especially right now when we get into that point where, tokenization is becoming such a big thing. So yeah, I definitely agree with this and I thought I'd share it with you. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell. Take care.